Hey, welcome to Reaching the Next Generation. Real quickly before we get going, please like our social media, our Instagram, Facebook, all of those great things. They'll appear at the bottom of the screen. Give us a big like and subscribe. We'd appreciate it, and pass it around. Today's guest is Pastor Troy Maxwell.
Good to be here,
Freedom
man.
House in Charlotte, North Carolina. Man, I'm so glad that you're on the show. Thank you,
buddy.
So much for being
Whenever
here.
I get around you, I feel a little smarter.
I don't know about that, man. You are a smart dude. So let me give you a little background here of what we're doing.
Okay.
And it's also good for the listeners to hear again. I grew up in a town of 6,000 people, and the tradition that I grew up in was a Church of God, and a Church of God that was 500 or 600 people was huge.
Yeah.
Like there were a couple of churches that were mega churches in the Church of God,
Right.
but most of them were very, very small. And as Grace has grown and we've been successful, I've just remembered back to my roots of smaller churches and struggling pastors. My mom had a couple of brothers that pastored, and real small churches, always worked another job. And, and I know that every pastor wants to see their church grow. I know every pastor wants to reach people. And I thought,
We hope.
well, yeah, I'm sure there may be, it's exactly right. We do hope. The stats I read are alarming about the church in America.
Yeah.
I mean, I think for the first time, Barna says, or it's Pew, one of them, says that we're under 50% of people that actually go to church now.
Okay.
And stats, obviously stats can be
Sure.
stats, but that's been like at 75% for years.
Yeah.
And it just seems like after COVID, it's even taken more of a dump. But your church is growing. Your church is thriving. You're having success in ministry. For somebody who's listening right now or watching, who's out there, they've got a church, they're coming out of the shell shock of COVID. They're trying to figure out what to do. What are some things, and it could be 1, it could be 20. I just would love to hear you talk on things that you all have done as a church, even in your early days to grow up to where you're at today. Just some things that you think you could be a blessing to that pastor or leader that's listening, to just help them out in their church, to help them reach the next generation. Because we want to reach that next group, and that next group is tough.
It is. It's difficult. And I think that it's a good challenge. And I kind of take it as a challenge, look as an opportunity.
Sure.
I think whenever we're facing anything as leaders, as people, because I just believe God puts inside of you everything that's necessary for life and godliness. So I don't think it's just for the godliness aspect. I think it's for the life part too.
I got you.
And so when we face opposition, when we face challenges, whatever it may be, that's kind of my life philosophy.
Okay.
So whenever we go through situations with our family internally, well, obviously, God, you've empowered me. You've given me the ability to do that.
That's great.
I have read a lot of statistics recently. 80% of pastors want to quit, which is terrible. And so, maybe there are some pastors that are watching, and this will help them kind of be encouraged. The stat was 80% of pastors would quit if they had something else to do.
Wow.
And that's a staggering number.
Yeah, because even if it's not 80, even if it's 70,
that's still sad.
I know.
So, does that mean they're doing something wrong? Does that mean that there's something wrong with society? No, I think that we have an enemy. He wants to destroy. He wants to kill. He wants to steal. That's his job. He has an agenda. Just as much as God has a plan for my life, the devil has a plan for my life. And I think that is true for the church as well. We have been a church. We're 19 years old this year. We started in a cafetorium, 9 years, set up, tear down. We bought land.
You were portable for 9 years. We were portable
for 9 years, which, in all honesty, Pastor, I think it was great for us. I'm glad that take it. I wanted buildings the whole time.
I understand.
But the 9 years was great for us to build a foundation of how to develop leaders, how to develop volunteers, how to because setup and breakdown, you're basically taking church to wherever you're meeting. The building aspect of it, screens and all that stuff. And so it was a challenge for 9 years. U-Hauls every Saturday night, set up, tear down after church.
So you were setting up Saturday night to get ready. And then you would come in on Sunday, do a run through, pray, all that stuff, do your services.
Yep.
And then you had to tear down the same day?
Same day. Yeah, Sunday, tear down. We were in a cafetorium. It wasn't a high school. It was elementary school. A pastor who's a big deal in the United States. I met him, probably 3-4 years into our church. And our church grew very slow, which I'm thankful. I prayed a prayer, probably not a good prayer. Lord, I don't want to grow past my leadership. And so obviously my leadership took a long time to grow, and so did my church. We went from 30 to 50 to 70 to 100. I was bivocational, so I had a job and I ran the church. We went from 1 service to 2 services to 3 services in a cafetorium. We bought land. We couldn't build. The market tanked 2008, 2009. We had to wait another 2 years before we were able to build the building because our loans were taken from us, during the 2008, 2009 deal. And it was brutal. Brutal is what some people say. Being a pastor, being a church is brutal. It's brutal and beautiful all at the same time.
It's messy.
It's messy. And it was really hard for us. But I'm glad we went
I don't want to interrupt your chain of thought, but I just got to ask these questions. Yeah. So let's go back to portable.
Okay.
What did it take for you to have to put all that together? Because I'm thinking there's got to be people that will listen to this that are in that portable stage.
Yeah.
What did you do? Like so somebody's in a portable stage right now. They're hoping for the building like you are. They're going, I'm brutal, man, right now with you. What did you do in the portable stage that made you successful?
So first of all, I had vision, which is a big thing. And what I mean by vision isn't, I didn't have something written on the wall. I mean, we had something written on the wall, but that wasn't it. And vision was always taught to me as the people that you're sharing what's next need to feel it. They need to hear it. They need to see it, just like you feel it, hear it, and see it. And so,
repeat that again. I want somebody to hear that. Vision isn't necessarily what we put on a wall,
right,
although we do put stuff on walls.
Right.
Vision is being able to share to other people that are in your leadership,
in your church
too.
Yep.
What you feel, what you see, and all that, and they need to feel it and see it the same way.
If you can't take them, you get them to close their eyes. And I was taught, close your eyes. And I want you to go with me. Here's what our building's going to look like. Here's what it's going to feel like when you walk in that building. Can you smell it? When you take your kids and drop them off, when you pick them up, what they're going to be saying to you, what it's going to feel like when somebody stands on the platform, that first time when a person walks down the altar and they accept Jesus, because you've got to ask them for money to pay for that. And so if you can get somebody to feel that, and so what I did in our church was 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old, I started casting that kind of vision to the congregation. Now, I had no idea that it would be another 4 or 5 years from that point as people were giving to a vision that hasn't come to pass yet. That's what vision is. And so we just kept talking about it and raising money, and because that's what you have to do. You have to raise the money to do it. And it was hard. So we got $80,000 in the bank. And we were like, yes, and then when the land came available, I had to raise another $120,000, and so I took everybody onto the land, the 60 people that were attending the church at the time, and show them what it looked like. And here's where the building's going to be. And I want you to walk over there because that's the lobby, and feeling it. And so if you're portable right now and you don't want to be portable forever, ever, those are the conversations you have to have. And you can't be afraid to ask people to go with you there. And that's what we did.
Do you agree with me that one of the greatest things we can do in any size church that we're in, you have to continually tell the people on a regular basis that you expect and you want the church to grow?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times we get comfortable in our churches. I probably don't do it as much as I used to, and I probably should. Now that I'm thinking about it, I need to do that again. I used to say, is there anybody in here that if somebody walked through the door right now and said, listen, I got to find Jesus. Like my life is broken.
Right.
My life is in shambles. Can you please lead me to Jesus right now? I go, is there anybody that would go, hey, you know what? We're sort of comfortable right now. Our chairs are comfortable. We're sort of good. Why don't you go down to the church down the street? Because we're just comfortable. I'm like, is there anybody in here that wouldn't say, because if you say yes, that means you're going to add another person to the church.
Yeah.
And if we're going to add another person, then we're going to add another one, which means we're going to grow.
Yep.
Don't you think that in some ways that standing in front and talking about vision, staying on that stream of thought, don't you think that anybody, no matter what church they're in, that they need to be telling them, hey, listen, we expect to grow? Because you made the comment, you go, well, hopefully all pastors want to grow. And I thought, yeah, that's true, because some people may not want to.
That's true. I have a statement that I've made for years. We're always going to be a small church with a lot of people.
That's great.
How
do you do that? Tell me how you do that.
Community, love, connection. Here's the truth. Statistically, no matter what size church you go to, you're going to know about 70 people. That's statistics. So whether your church has 10,000 or whether your church has 100, you're going to know 70 people. Wow. So get over the fact that your church is big. God wants large, influential communities in every city, in every community. Now, we have our vision for our multi-site is to be the local church in every local community. So, a small church with a lot of people means the local church in every community, which means I teach all my leaders and volunteers that I want you to understand that you are building seats for the next generation. You are building seats for those that are come. When you get saved, when you become a Christian, church is no longer for you. It's for people that are coming. Because let's be honest, you're a great communicator. You have a phenomenal church. I would hope people would say the same about Freedom House.
Both.
But in an hour and 15 minutes, if you're on time, you're not going to get fed as a church attender in an hour and 15 minutes. And so when people start complaining to me, well, I'm not being fed. Well, hold on. How long have you been a Christian? 10 years? You should be feeding yourself right now. God has you in Freedom House so you can help somebody get to where you are. That's the most important thing. And so I'm always talking about church isn't for you anymore. If you think that, then you're way misled. Worship's not for you. Never has been, never will be. Well, I didn't like that song. Well, then listen to the song you like in the car on the way to work. But church is for that friend that that needs a touch from God, so that when they walk through this door, you've prepared that atmosphere because of your faith, your desire to see life change, so that the couple that live next door to you that you heard arguing at 2 a.m., you can go, hey, I've got somewhere I'd like you to come. I'll take you to lunch, but let's go to church. I want you to come to my church because I've invested, not just financially for brick and mortar, but I've invested faith, prayer, love, joy, community, so that when they walk in, they experience the love of God that I felt.
What do you say? What do you say? Because you know as well as I do, there's people out there that are go, oh, that's great, but church, we got to come. It's we got to equip the saints, and we got to just pour into the saints. And there's a truth to that. But what do you say to those people that go, oh, all you just want to do is grow. All you want to do is have a big church, and so you create these environments because you get that. I mean,
sure.
if you have a large church in America, somebody's going to tell you that you're doing it wrong, and it's just the way it is. And there's going to be people at small churches that are complaining about their church that isn't good. What do you say to somebody who says, I don't like that model. It's too seeker friendly. It's too seeker sensitive. It's, what do you say to somebody who's thinking that way?
Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you. No, I'm kidding. No, I think those are really hard people to convince because they are about themselves. And, I think Jesus dealt with them, the Pharisees and the religious. They didn't want change. And sadly, those people are really hard to change because they're settled. They're set in their ways. And honestly, at Freedom House, at my church, those people usually get squeezed right back out because they don't last very long in a culture like ours because we are so service oriented, so outside. We're trying to reach people, trying to get people saved, connect with people, and for the purpose of getting them closer to Jesus. And we do it not in a seeker way, although I would say our church is inviting to people who are not saved. We also disciple. We're pretty strong in our conviction.
No, you're strong. I mean, Penny is your wife, who also is a pastor of the church as well. You guys. I would definitely not say that you and Penny are in any way, shape, or form trying to create an environment that's just easy to come in and get along. And I'm not saying that you try to make it difficult,
right?
But you are people that tell the truth. Yeah. I mean, and you're unashamed about it, and you've probably been attacked.
We have
in some ways.
We have. You talked about COVID. And I think COVID for us, and then this may sound really weird, but it was probably the best thing for us. I mean, that whole season of life and ministry for us was one of the best years because we got more clarity on who we were individually, Penny and I, and who we are as a church than we ever have in the 19 years or 18 years at that time that we've been in existence. The challenges we went through, the decisions that we had to make, the leadership that we had to step into, because what happened during COVID is people were looking for leadership. Who do I believe? Where do I go?
Yeah, there was a vacuum of leadership.
There was and sadly, if I can be honest, pastors weren't stepping up to the plate. And I was very disappointed at a lot of pastors and leaders who did not step up to the plate. And I'm thankful for people like you that started podcasts like this to help people that are watching that really have weathered that challenging storm. It was a storm.
Yeah.
And guess what? There's going to be lots more coming.
Oh, yeah.
But we have to be willing to be the tip of the spear because let's be honest, the church is the answer. Jesus is the answer.
That's right.
There are no other options when it comes down to this. And we cannot fold as the organism that God, the body of Christ, has created us to be, not just in America, but in the world.
Sure.
And, because of what America stands for, not the geography, but the idea of, and I'm not talking about politically, I'm just talking about what this country was founded for. Israel was God's chosen people. America chose God. And so that's what we stand for.
Sure.
And I think as the church, we need to step up to that, and it helped us.
But do you believe this? Don't you believe that you keep hitting a lid with your leadership, and if you can't get past that lid, you don't continue forward? I can't tell you how many lids at Grace we've hit along the way that if we didn't learn how to get past them, we wouldn't have continued to grow.
No, and I think that's what I would say to somebody who's portable.
Okay.
Is don't ever stop investing in your leadership. Don't ever stop growing your leadership.
Hear that? Don't ever stop investing in your leadership.
So what I found, and I had to learn this the hard way, is, you asked, what would you say to that person who said this? Well, eventually, as a pastor, you cannot invest time in trying to change somebody who's not willing to change. And so what I think as pastors that want to grow churches is they end up getting sidetracked with people projects that they shouldn't. And they got people over here that need their investment, want to grow, want to go to the next level. And because they're so people pleasing over here that they miss out on the leadership opportunity that's over here. And so what I would say to the guy who, has 150, 200, 300, 400 people in his church and he's set up in breakdown is start teaching your leaders and your volunteers to think 5 times. Okay, what if 5 times the number of people walked in this building next week? What would you do? So now you need to build your teams around that philosophy.
That's great.
So if you have 200 people, what if 1,000 people walked in next week? What would the structure look like? How would you check in the kids? What would the volunteer system look like? What would the system of check-in? How about cars, parking cars? And then you build your leadership team, your service team, everything in your church thinking 5 times. And guess what will happen? God will send it to you. People think, well, if I just get into a building, you're going to grow. That's true. Okay. You'll have a surge. But if you don't have the systems and the processes to maintain that, people are going to come and then they're just going to walk right back out because you're not ready to help them. So think that you already have that building. Think and start teaching your team to ask those kind of questions.
Man, that's great advice. That's good advice for whether you have 30 or whether you have 10,000.
It's true.
Because you can tap out at a certain level.
It's true.
Those are good things. Let me ask you as a pastor, why do you think that people are leaving the church right now?
I think that this is my opinion.
No, and that's what I want. The reason we do this is not because all of us have all the answers, but if we all sort of share what we know collectively, somebody's going to go, "Hey, that was a great point. I can use that in my ministry." Why do you think people are leaving?
I think people are leaving because the church has been soft,
really,
for a long time.
Okay,
and hard times create tough people, and the churches that I think there's a shift. Okay. I believe that there's a shift away from the seeker model,
and
more to the discipleship model.
Okay.
Okay. And I think you can see this over history, that there's always been shifts. We needed the 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 revival of LED screens and all that stuff. But I think people are kind of over it. And I think people are looking for ministry. They're looking for the word of God. They're looking for truth.
Mm.
And if the church is not presenting the truth or ready to give the truth, I think a lot of pastors were addicted to the platform, and COVID dealt with that. God said, you're not going to get the claps anymore. You're going to have to talk to a camera and be okay with it. And it was difficult for them to deal with that because they needed the accolades. And so now when things are back, people are like, well, give me some truth. I need leadership. Like we talked about a few minutes ago. And I think that's what's happening. People are looking for leadership and they're not finding it.
And can you, I mean, you and Penny, because we've talked about it just as friends, you all felt like coming out of COVID that you needed to take some strong stands.
We did.
And I'm sure it cost you.
It did a lot.
But you did it because you felt, I got to lead.
Yeah.
What do you say to somebody out there that, they're a pastor and they're really struggling with everything going on, but deep down inside they want to try to make everybody happy? And I mean, I can't say you for sure, but I can say most pastors I know don't really try to go out of their way to just make everybody mad. Most pastors really try to be nice to people and kind. Nobody goes, I'm going to get into ministry because I just want to really irritate everybody. I mean, typically people are like, I want to go into ministry because I want to make a difference for the kingdom of God. And when you lose somebody from your church or somebody's mad at you, that's personal. I mean, of course the church is God's, it's not mine, but it becomes, in some ways, you take some ownership and it's like, that's your baby. And, when it kicks and bucks and bites, it hurts. What do you say to a pastor out there that says, I'm still in that phase of trying to make everybody happy. I'm trying to walk in between the raindrops in every way. What would you say to them as a successful pastor about where they're at and how they might be able to take a step a little bit forward to maybe lead a little stronger?
Yeah. I don't think you can do that. I mean, I don't think.
Okay.
It's really difficult to please everybody. I've been there.
Okay.
Because you'll have.
You're a nice guy.
I hope so.
You are a nice guy, but I think all of us at some point have tried to please everybody. It doesn't work.
We do, and it's impossible. I mean, our church is multicultural, so when all this stuff went down, we had racial issues, we had political issues, we had cultural issues. We had riots in the streets in Charlotte, and all kinds of craziness that went on, and people are coming to your church looking for answers. Well, what if you say something that they don't want to hear? And everything was about empathy. Well, and I agree, you need to sit with people, but there's also a time that we need to talk about what we need to do to change. And that's when it gets difficult, and you just can't please everybody. And so what I would say to the pastor who's trying to do that is you've got to decide your convictions and your values. You've got to know what your church is for, and not every church is supposed to be like, Freedom House or Grace Community. Sure. And I'm on the board of a few churches, and I've had some conversations with some of the guys, and I've said, listen, I realize that you're not to be the tip of the spear like us. This is our calling. I'm not putting pressure on you to do that. However, you also need to be able to have those hard conversations with people who are vacillating on what they believe in because of the pressure of culture and society, about issues that now are considered political that really aren't. And so, people ask me all the time, why are you getting political? I said, no, time out. I'm not political. No, politics came through the door of the church a long time ago. What the church decided for a long time is not to deal with it and to kind of push it to the side and say it's soft-spoken about it. But now things like homosexuality and abortion and all these are issues. They're not political issues. Those are biblical issues we need to deal with, and the church needs to stand for them. And so we've just decided to go head on into it. And we're helping some, lately it's crazy, Pastor, how many people have invited me to come and talk to them about what we're doing. And it's just who we are.
Well, you're leading right now, and people are attracted to leadership.
And you said something really good. And I would be afraid if it didn't hurt when people left. Okay, I would be afraid if it didn't hurt my heart. because it does. I'm super disappointed when people walked out and the things that they said about me. People that have been with me for 10, 15 years, and the comments that they made about myself and about Penny, man, it breaks my heart.
That's probably, for me, being vulnerable, that's probably the hardest thing for me. I mean, I'm just being honest. It
hurts my family.
Well, I feel like that you only know me from a platform. You only know me from a sermon. You only know me. You don't know my struggles at home. You don't know the difficulties that my wife has had growing up. You don't know the struggles that I've had. You don't know the hurts that I went through. You don't know the challenges I have with my children. You know, I'm not saying you personally. I'm just talking to you. But when somebody comes and lobs that grenade at you, you know, you shouldn't have said this. You shouldn't have done that. I can't believe you did this. I can't believe you allowed somebody to say this. I can't believe. And it's like, it hurts me because it's like, you don't know me. Like, I go through I do more in my mind for a weekend service than probably everybody else is doing in their mind, just in their mind for church. They just think, oh, it's Sunday, I'm going to go to church. Yeah. I'm thinking about, how do I say this? How do I say it in a way that has maximum impact? Yeah. How do I say it in a way that filter that's over there in the right that I know is thinking, you know, a certain thing about certain things, or this filter over here on the person here sitting in the middle row. Yeah. And I'm going through all this stuff, and sometimes I've just said to myself, you know what, you just can't do this. You can't do this. But it comes from that place of I want to reach people because I really love Jesus. I know. You know, and I don't want to push somebody away, but I also realize that preaching the gospel and being honest with the gospel is going to cut. Yeah. There's going to be a sword at some point. Yeah. You know, and I just do my best to try to make sure that the sword that cuts is the gospel and not Chip Bennett. Yeah. You know, but that hurts. Yeah.
Do you ever, when you're preaching, like you look out and somebody gets up and walks up?
I know it.
And you're going, oh man, what did I just say?
I know.
But then it's really just had to go to the bathroom.
I know.
And then they come back in and you're like, yes.
I know. Well, we had it was at our Bee Ridge campus. You've been there. I don't know what I said, but somebody popped up and went right out the side door. And I was like, well, I guess I said something, because it looked that way. But the buzzer had gone off for her kid. Oh yeah, in children's church. That's hilarious. You know, and I thought, oh man, I don't know what I said. I was thinking, what did I say that was so bad that you would pop up and leave on me? You know, but you do, and I don't think people see that. You know, they think that, oh, you know, you got a thriving church and a beautiful family, a beautiful wife, so you just must everything must be perfect, you know, and it's not. I mean, pastors, they struggle, and I mean, I don't know if you're listening, you're a pastor or leader. I just want to give you the just the okay to say the permission to say I struggle, you know. Let's, because you're one of the best I know at this. Talk for a minute about how important it is for a pastor to have a pastor in their life.
You mean like as somebody over you?
Yes, over that, and then just the connections of pastors. Yeah, because you are a pastor of pastors who integrates with pastors, who hangs out with. I mean, you're of my friends. I'm sure there's other people, but of my friends, I look up to you in the way that you have pastor friends, and you. But isn't it important for a pastor 100%. To have a pastor, and isn't it important for pastors to have fellowship with other pastors?
Well, let's talk about the pastor. Okay. Having a pastor, somebody. Yep. I think every pastor needs to have somebody in their life that will tell them no and they listen.
I love that.
You have to have somebody in your life like that, or you'll just get in trouble, you know, because you can find anybody to tell you yes. You look hard enough and somebody will agree with you.
You can find a Bible verse to tell you yes.
Exactly. I mean, your theology could be totally heresy, and somebody will agree with you.
That's right.
You know, somewhere.
Somebody agreed with David Koresh.
Exactly. A bunch of people did.
That's right.
And so you need to have somebody, and the way that happens, you have to invite them. Okay, it's not something that just they come and invite themselves into your life. You have to actually invite them into your life. And so I have a couple guys. Pastor Gerald Brooks, he's a guy that can tell me no, and I listen. He's out of Texas. Dennis Rouse, Colleen Rouse, Daryl Mims. Those are all guys that are on a oversight board. That I gave permission. I invite them. They can speak. They can call me anytime, and they have called me. Even during last year, they called me and challenged me in some of the things that we were doing or not doing.
Really? Okay.
You know, I wouldn't have opened my church when I did if it wasn't for Pastor Gerald Brooks challenging me. Then the next level is people that are connected with you. Now, I know that people have friends in their church, but I think it's difficult to share your level of pain, ups, downs, however you want, sideways, what's going on with your kids, what's going on with your wife, all that stuff with people that are in your church. No matter how wonderful they want to be at saying, I can handle it, Pastor Chip, they're the ones that still have to sit out in your congregation and listen to you preach.
Yeah.
And if you are telling them, man, I'm struggling with X, and they got to listen to you and then sit and listen to you preach, they might be questioning that. And so I think you have to have people that are on the same page as you. There's things I can talk to you about that I can't talk to somebody in my church about.
I understand. And vice versa.
Yeah, and I think that's important.
You need people in your life that will pour into your kids, will pour into your family, and do it because they care about you. Listen to me, pastor and leader. You need somebody in your life that will do that. I mean, it's
so true. It's so important.
It is, isn't it?
You need people.
So you've got pastors in your life that you look to, like a normal person would look to a pastor,
right?
And then you have a group of people too that you have
just
are
my
very
best
close.
buddies, man. We hang out, we play golf, we cut up,
we
goof off, we send each other funny text messages.
How important is that for you?
100, man. I need it. I need a good, funny meme like you send me. I need that.
Well, I know, but I mean, maybe it's not the same receiving from me, but I can't tell you how many times, whether it's you or some other friend I've got, that I'm going through something that day that's not very, and I get a funny text or a funny meme, and I'm like, man, I'm glad they were thinking about me. It's so important to have, and I think that if we are going to effectively reach the next generation, we got to be healthy too.
Absolutely.
Like, we can't be broken. You said today in the message, you said that your relationships only go as far as the healing that you've had in your brokenness.
Yes, true.
Talk about that a little bit.
Well, I don't, we all have wounds.
Yep.
We all have unhealed hurts. And it's so easy just to keep picking at the scab, and it's kind of nasty. But it's never going to heal that way. You've got to do what's necessary to fix it, or it's always going to be there. And you can suppress it. And the pastors are good at that, because we can turn it on and turn it off. We can fake it. We can do all that stuff. But the truth is if you've got something that's unhealed, unresolved, a wound, maybe it's an offense or bitterness or something like that. Maybe somebody left your church and the way that they did it was horrible. Look, I had a couple people leave my church in 2018, man, and they just stabbed me in the back and twisted the knife and just dug in. It was just terrible, horrible. And it took me 6 months to recover from it. But I had to get to the point where God says, Troy, if you don't deal with this and repent of your anger, and because I didn't know if I met them honestly at the grocery store, I wouldn't go old Troy on them, it was bad. Like, I felt really bad. I was angry.
Yeah.
And I had to deal with it. Well, I knew my church wasn't going to go any farther. My leadership, my ability to train other leaders was not going to go any farther than my ability to release that to God and get some people to help me with that, and say, God, I need your help. I can't live this way. Man, and I think pastors have wounds, Oh
yeah.
And most of them are family wounds. Most of them are mom-dad issues.
Okay.
That we never dealt with. Maybe ministry originally was something you ran to because you were running from something. And now your church is growing and the success is feeding something, but that hurt's going to come up. You need to deal with it,
So going back here to, this, we're reaching the next generation. What are some things that you have done at Freedom House? And again, I don't have like an enumeration list. It could be 1, it could be 20, but whatever. What are some things that you all do practically that you could say to anybody who's listening? Here are some things that we do as a church that actually work, that you could probably implement in some form or fashion in your church to effectively start to reach the next generation. Okay. Are there some things that you think of right away?
Yeah, I got 3 things right.
Okay, great. Okay, good.
Because I'm a pastor, I got 3 things.
In a poem?
Okay, yeah. So number 1, and these aren't in order, is a few years back is we developed a leadership pipeline. And in essence, what that means is when we see potential in somebody, they go through a process to put them in leadership. And this piggybacks on the other thing, All right. So, and I'll talk about the leadership pipeline. Let me back up and just say the other thing that we had. I think every church has to have a next step.
Okay.
For everybody. So if you don't have when somebody walks through the door, what's next? They've been at your church and serving, what's next? They've been a leadership, what's next? If they don't have a what's next, they're going to move to the next place to operate in their gift. So you've got to have specific steps that people can walk out, a trajectory for the people that come into your church. I'm not saying we're perfect with it, but we do have a trajectory. You walk into our church, you're greeted, there's a connection, go here, get on track, our membership class, you serve for a little while, you become a leader, you become a life group leader, you become a service leader, a team leader, a campus pastor. That's, basically campus pastor is probably the highest level of leadership in my church, because eventually, God forbid, I get knocked out, my campuses will just be turned over and the campus pastor will run them, so that's the way it's going to work. So they could potentially be the pastors of those churches.
Sure.
And so the leadership pipeline was something we developed probably about 16, 17.
Okay.
2016, 17, I had a guy come in and he worked with us on a trajectory for that, for our leaders. They fill out an application, they get interviewed. We ask very in-depth questions about what they've gone through, how they're dealing with life, what their service is, what their leadership is, what their life is like, giving, all of that stuff. We teach them culture, and then we have mentors that come alongside them and help them in leadership. And this process could take anywhere from a month to 6 months.
Wow.
And so that's a trajectory. The third thing that we did that I think is probably one of the best things that we do at Freedom House Church, we have what's called Forward. Okay, Forward is, and I think a lot of us have people like this, and this is what happens. Okay, so they come to your church, they get saved, their life is redeemed, they're going to heaven, they start serving at Grace Community, and then stuff starts coming out. Baggage they never dealt with, because salvation heals our sins, but we still have to deal with the flesh. So we've got people who've gone through divorce, drug addiction, relational problems, porn addiction, sexual addictions, alcohol, drugs, dysfunction, family problem. You got all this stuff. Okay, so they come first couple of years, man, oh, this is the best thing in the world. And then something comes up and they stop growing. So what's next? So we developed this program called Forward. It's 4 classes all about your identity, about the Holy Spirit that you go through. And then we have a full weekend where it's immersive that starts on Friday night and goes all the way through Saturday. And it is the best thing that we do. People go through it over and over again because we have a little phrase for everybody. We don't ever tell anybody no. We tell them not yet. Okay, so we don't want people to go, can I serve? No. We'll go, hey, not yet. I need you to go through Forward. They go through Forward. Then they need to jump through some hoops, because we want to get them healed.
Yeah.
And so those 3 things are probably the best things that we're doing right now as a church. And Forward knocks it out of the park. And I would be more than happy to share that with anybody. We'll give you everything you need.
Yeah, your church is great like that. And he means that. If you were to call up and say, hey, I saw Troy on a podcast and he said he'd give us some information,
we'll give it all
Freedom
away.
House will give you just
have
about
one request. Make it better.
That's good.
Make it better.
That's good. Is there anything you could say to a pastor, a leader, that is just struggling right now? It's been a challenging season. Anything you could say to them that could speak some life to them? Maybe they just find themselves right now watching and and they're like going, oh man, this all sounds great, but I'm so weary. I'm so
sure.
I'm beat up. Any words of wisdom that you have for them?
I'd just say don't give up. Don't quit. God put you here. He's anointed you. I know you're tired. Take a break. Take some time off. Honestly, we all need to rest.
Yeah. I think the best thing you ever said to me was you said, Chip, it's okay to take a weekend off.
It
Your
is.
church ain't going to wreck in a week.
You can't mess it up. I forget who said, what did they say? They talked about, you can't mess up the anointing. You can't, you can't break what God has given you anyway. You just can't break it. It's not that fragile. That's what he said. The anointing is not that fragile.
That's good.
And so the power of God is not that fragile. If we were in that much control, I think God would have given us way too much responsibility.
Any thoughts about youth ministry?
I think after COVID, I think there's going to be some really cool stuff that's going to come out. Our youth ministry is doing okay. I wouldn't say that it's doing great.
Okay.
It's doing okay.
Same.
Yeah.
Same.
It's not wonderful. I think there's a little bit of a limbo right now on what's next. Used to be big meetings. Then it went to one meeting, a bunch of small groups, and I don't know what's going on right now. And so I think we're praying through what the next step is for this generation. But I can tell you it's needed.
Yeah, youth and children's ministry you can really tell a lot about a church if you just look at their youth and their children, can't you? You can tell the health of the church and all that stuff.
I would say we're killing it on children's ministry.
Okay.
And young adult ministry is growing, but our youth ministry is probably, I wouldn't say it's struggling, but it's definitely just pushing through.
Don't you always feel like in some way there's, of all the metrics in a church, there's usually one flat spot on a wheel at a church at any given moment, isn't it? They
always.
And once you get the one that you thought was
another one,
and you think, now I got this great wheel, it's going to spin
plates, man.
And then I know it is. I mean, it's I think that passage by Paul in Galatians 6, he says, "Don't be weary in well doing."
Yeah,
I think that we just have to press on. Well, man, I just want to say thanks so much.
Thank you, man. This was fun
for being here. Blessings to you and to your church and to your family. And I just hope that something was said today that could benefit you as a pastor, as a leader in your ministry. Please remember to subscribe and like the things that you're watching, but make sure that you send them to other people. You probably know pastors and leaders in your life right now that could use these types of things. Get them to them. They're free. Just send it out. Send it to everybody that you know. You never know who might benefit from this. Thanks so much for joining us with Reaching the Next Generation. Hey, Chip here. I just want to take a moment and say thanks so much for watching Reaching the Next Generation. I really hope that this was something that was beneficial to you. And what I would ask, if you really enjoyed this, would you like it? Would you subscribe to it? Would you give us some comments? And most importantly, would you share it? I believe with all of my heart that the material and the content that we have on this channel truly can make a difference and resource pastors and leaders and Christians. And you can help us to truly help others to reach the next generation. Thanks so much for being a part of our channel.